I believe we're streaming right now.
It's the lotus flower.
I believe we're streaming right now. Okay?
Nice.
So, you are on. Live. Actually, live. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Alrighty. So, we're going to open the altar now. Thanks for joining us.
Haribol!
Whoever's there. Alright. This is streaming. I'm watching now. So, why don't you mute that?
Because
You
that's
get feedback.
15 seconds delayed.
Yeah, just mute that. There you go. You might as well turn the volume on the TV all the way down. On the side. Or yeah, just turn it over. So nobody changed that guitar string again. Just tune this guitar real quick. Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhagati Sadma Pandamuri Savadana Mate Nara Prashare Baye He Baba Toriya Yaye Krishna Prapti Hoya Prashade Pure Sarvasa Jakudana Kiloye Jame Jame Prabhu Se Divya Kana Ride Prakashito Prema Bhaktiya Aite Avidya Janara Bandhu Lokena Lokera Jivana Abna Koro Doya Deho More Marajaya Hebeya Sagusu Tribhuvana Jaya Jaya Srila Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Srila Prabhupada. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow to your lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By your grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from your lotus mouth. Attachment to your lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. You open my darkened eyes and fill my heart with transcendental knowledge. You are my Lord, birth after birth. From you, ecstatic prema emanates. By you, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of your character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto me. Give me the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. Let's close that window because that may be interfering with the actual transmission. Yeah, just close the whole window. This way we're not taking up all the bandwidth. Krishna Raja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Krishna Prasthaya Surapananda Padam Sivanaya Padam Now, how about we reposition the camera so it's over here?
Shall I pick up the drum and move it over there? Is that what she does?
Probably, and you realize that you're actually, the film is rolling right now, you are streaming.
Yeah.
So,
So I put it on that side of the table?
so keep talking about non-devotional things, just move the camera here so that engineer does not break the mood, dude. That's really good. Right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, the original 1972 version. From chapter 5, Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. Today we're reading text 16. But before I begin reading or speaking, first I'd like to offer my most humble and respectful obeisances to my spiritual master, Jagat Guru Siddhaswarupananda Paramahamsa Prabhupada, and to Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, and their associates, and all the Vaishnava Acharyas in the Sri Madhavakarya Sampradaya. Jnanina tu tad ajnanam yesham nashitam atmanaha tesham adityavaj jnanam prakashyati tat paramam. Jnanena, by knowledge, tu, but, tat, that, ajnanam, nescience, yesham, of those, nashitam, is destroyed, atmanaha, of the living entity, tisham, of their, adityavat, like the rising sun, jnanam, knowledge, prakashayati, discloses, tatparam, in Krishna consciousness, jnanina tu tad ajnanam, yesham nashitam atmanaha, tesham aditya vajjnanam, prakashyati tat param. Okay, these are Krishna's words translated. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. In order to understand this verse, we must first understand what is nescience and what is truly knowledge. Because people in ignorance, they think that they have knowledge. And, of course, that's what ignorance means, is that they don't have knowledge. But they think they have knowledge. So they will think that material science is knowledge. They will think that their opinion is knowledge. They will think that what they find on Google, which is other opinions, is knowledge. They will think that what is consensus is knowledge. And they will think that what they observe is knowledge. But the reality, as we've discussed in previous verses, is the modern conception in science through quantum physics. The scientists have discovered that this is not matter. That this is all energy, and that the energy is under the influence of the mind. And through little experiments, shooting electrons through photons through slots, they've noticed that the outcomes are variable, especially when there's consciousness present. That there are different outcomes when consciousness is not present, and there are certain outcomes when consciousness is present. In other words, consciousness is affecting the visceral experience, what we are perceiving. In other words, to put it very directly, the eyes are not observing an externalized world. The mind is feeding a projection directly into the senses. Mind is a movie projector and is projecting according to the heart's desire. And it is making up stories to accommodate what the appetite really, what the heart really desires, and what where the appetite's really at. The mind is making up stories, and it is feeding these stories directly into the eyeballs, directly into the ears, directly into the taste buds, directly into the nostrils, directly into the skin, the surface of the skin. And that there isn't any differentiated world here. Sorry. There isn't an externalized world. That everything the individual living entity is experiencing is a vibrational fantasy. In other words, not truth. And that vibrational fantasy is being supported. It is arranged and is supported by the Supreme Personality of Godhead for individuals to be in the illusion that they're in separation from God. Which is not the truth. God is omnipresent, and He permeates everything and every part of everything that we project and conceive and perceive. Perception is, for the most part, a myth. Conception is more the reality. And the conception can be fictitious, or the conception can be in truth. The conception can be, in truth, one can truly perceive. But in ignorance, one can only conceive. And the conceptions are fiction. What you are seeing is a projection of your mind according to your appetite. Your appetite happens to be slightly different from those that seek bloody steaks and alcohol and wanton sense gratification. But your appetite is slightly different and has manifested a projection that actually is allowing some transparency to the truth here. This happens to be the most confidential knowledge of the absolute truth in person. And the personality of the eternal consciousness is making itself, making your world transparent a little bit right now. And that personality is pushing through a little bit right now, making itself known right now, because your appetite is slightly different than the appetite of all the other people that don't have an appetite for the truth. So your veil of Maya has become transparent at this point, and you're having a window into the absolute truth right now. But this window is actually occurring in the projection of your mind, and you are experiencing it in the capacity in which you can understand it. Right? The way that your mind can wrap itself around the truth. That's what you're actually, the projector is feeding into your ears and into your eyes right now. So this knowledge that is coming through your eyes and your ears, okay, dissipates the thickness of the curtain of illusion, the thickness of the fiction that your mind typically projects into your senses. Okay. Then this knowledge reveals everything that is in truth, and dissipates everything that is fiction, as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. So I'll read that again. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, the knowledge that this is all a projection, a movie that is accommodating your appetite, and Vishnu has arranged this. The personality that is right now revealing himself is, there's others over here. This knowledge is dissipating the thickness of the illusion, so that your consciousness can have a taste. Your appetite is having a taste for a different kind of flavor, a different kind of experience, a kind of experience that is in the truth. This is the original 1972 translation of Bhagavad Gita as it is. The most confidential knowledge of the absolute truth. So your appetite has had a flavor for something different than ignorance and wanton material sense gratification. Now your appetite has changed, and you are experiencing a different flavor of genuine truth. So the curtain's being dissipated because your appetite is slightly different. Now the purport by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami reads, "Those who have forgotten Krishna must certainly be bewildered. But those who are in Krishna consciousness are not bewildered at all." So let's talk about that. Those who have forgotten Krishna. Okay, it's in a sense forgotten Krishna, but it's more like shoved Krishna out of the way while trying to get to his stuff and use it. Okay, get to his stuff and use it for the self, and make all kinds of fictitious excuses to accommodate that appetite. Right? So forgotten is a nice way to put it. More like belligerently shoved Krishna out of the way and said, "I'm going to take your stuff and I'm going to use it. And I'm going to ignore you for my entire duration of life, for 4,800,000 species of lives." It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, "Sarva Jnanam Plavina Jnanagniha Sarva Karmani and Nahi Ganena Sadrisham." Knowledge is always highly esteemed. In every respect, knowledge is highly esteemed, unless they're really ignorant people. They just like to go to football games and drink beer on Sunday after church. Okay? Have barbecues. They don't highly esteem knowledge, but they might even esteem knowledge about team scores and statistics about the players. So then, yes, knowledge is always highly esteemed. But what is knowledge? There's knowledge that supports a lustful appetite, karmic appetite, and then there's knowledge that dissipates that karmic appetite and that satisfies the truth, the appetite for the truth. So perfect knowledge is achieved when one surrenders unto Krishna, as is said in the 7th chapter, 19th verse. Bahunam janmananam at ante jnanavan mam prapadayate. After passing through many, many births, when one perfect in knowledge surrenders unto Krishna, or when one attains Krishna consciousness, then everything is revealed to him, as the sun reveals everything in the daytime. So when one changes his appetite, then he can become educated on the truth, which is Krishna, and then eventually belongs himself in truth to the person who owns everything. And when one attains this Krishna consciousness, then everything is revealed to him, as the sun reveals everything in the daytime. The living entity is bewildered in so many ways. Okay? And he's bewildered because he's using this bewilderment as an excuse to accommodate his appetite for blood, his appetite for sense gratification, his appetite for death and destruction, his appetite for confusion and calamity, his appetite for self-flagellation and self-destruction. For instance, when he thinks himself God, unceremoniously, he actually falls into the last snare of nescience. Okay? It's become very, 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 very popular, and American society has become very saturated with this concept of atheism, communism, all the isms. I'm not going to go on in the isms because we're going to push any of your buttons. Okay? But what this does is it puts one in a position of that, well, if God doesn't exist, then I am God. You hear this? This is coffee shop talk at the Bohemian atheistic coffee shops, where they say, oh, no, you're God, brother. You've just forgotten that you're God, and all you got to do is realize that you're God, and you can have control of everything. Okay. Go down to the coffee shop, start talking about God like he's a real person and he's separate from yourself, and guarantee you, if it's a real Bohemian coffee shop, some little punk will overhear from another table, chime in and say, oh, no, I know all about that. I practice some meditation, and in reality, you're God. You've just forgotten that you're God. We're all God. If a living entity is God, then how can he become bewildered by nescience? That is an oxymoron. God means omnipotent, omniscient. That means he knows everything, and he's always powerful, and he's omnipresent. That means he's everywhere all the time. He knows everything all the time, and he's all powerful all the time. Okay? Someone who is omni is never. Also, that means never ignorant, never isolated, and never weak. That's, and every single one of us is isolated, weak, and, and so on. I'm not going to just sit here and, okay. Does God become bewildered by nescience? It's impossible, because the meaning of God means omniscient. If so, then nescience, or Satan, is greater than God. And this is what the atheists would like to suggest, is that there's no God, and that their satanic way, their demoniac ways, their conceptions are actually true, and that God doesn't exist. That's what they say. Real knowledge can be obtained from a person who is in perfect Krishna consciousness. Therefore, one has to seek out such a bona fide spiritual master, and unto him learn what Krishna consciousness is. You can't learn from a building. You can't learn from a book that's been manipulated, right? The gold version of this book. You can't learn that from there. You can't learn it from a book. You can't learn it from Google. You can't learn it because you're contaminated with your appetite. You have to learn it from a real enlightened individual who is truly in Krishna consciousness, a bona fide guru. You can't learn it from a committee, and you can't learn it from someone who's elected or appointed or hired to teach you. You can't learn it from a professor at a college. Krishna becomes manifest in the person who allows himself to become anointed and enlightened by a bona fide devotee in the Guru Parampara. That goes back to Arjuna and Krishna. And what we're talking about is an anointing. Okay? Cannot become anointed unless you are touched on the forehead with holy oil, and that the Shakti of God and Krishna consciousness is transferred into. You can't be Krishna conscious just by putting a little stripe on your forehead. You're striping your own forehead and tying your little robe in a knot. Okay? You can't put it on, you can't costume your way into the kingdom of heaven. You can't pretend your way into the kingdom of heaven. It is an absolute fact right here that it is in the 1972 version of the Bhagavad Gita says one has to seek out such a bona fide spiritual master. This is not optional. And under him learn what Krishna consciousness is. The spiritual master can drive away all nescience, all ignorance, as the sun drives away darkness. You cannot drive away your own ignorance because you don't have a roadmap. You ever had a GPS and it got you lost? Okay, a GPS that gets you lost is not a bona fide guru. Someone who is a resident of the spiritual world and knows the map and is come back to make himself available to allow certain qualified candidates. Not everyone. The rest of them can go and join the Hare Krishna social club. Okay? But the most sincere, the most humble, and the most servile. Even though a person may be in full knowledge that he is not this body, but is transcendental to the body, he still may not be able to discriminate between the soul and the super soul. He may not be able to tell himself from God or Lord in the heart, and can become very confused about how to function in this world, and also while retaining residence in the spiritual world. This is why he has to come under the grace of a guru, because a guru is the power, is like an umbrella to protect the ignorant students and disciples, so that it keep them transcendentally engaged, so that they don't become susceptible to the influences of their own appetites and of Maya and the devil, who is a very real person. A representative of God never claims that he is God, although he is paid all the respect ordinarily paid to God because he has knowledge of God. The devotee of Krishna has recognized God lives within, in the heart, and has compelled God to come out of his heart and to come into his entire body. And his entire body, he recognizes his entire body as the temple of Vishnu. So his goal is to actually get out of the way, to get out of the body, to let Vishnu come in and take control of this whole temple. And there's a back door by which the devotee actually leaves the body and enters into the kingdom of God, which is not in the material world. So when the devotee leaves the body and becomes resident of the material world, the only thing left to control the body is Lord in the heart, which is Vishnu. Therefore, the body becomes the temple of Vishnu. And in this way, Vishnu can speak into the ears of the qualified candidates in this world, and they can have access, and this can activate Lord in their heart and their consciousness, and they can start asking Vishnu to come in out of their heart and into their own whole temple themselves. This is a long and arduous process to actually make this happen. Lord Sri Krishna therefore stated in the second chapter, well, let's see. One has to learn the distinction between God and the living entity, and this is Guru's responsibility. It's also, well, it's a student's responsibility to learn, and it's the Guru's prerogative to teach this. the teacher's prerogative to gauge where the student's at and engage them in exercises by which they're eventually going to realize that they are not the body, and that they are not, that they are jiva, the spirit soul, and that they are not the supreme soul, but to recognize the distinction between the spirit soul and the supreme soul, and to invite the supreme soul in to clean the temple, to purify the temple. The jiva has to purify the temple by inviting Vishnu in and his purifying potency to come and clean the temple and to occupy the temple. But in order to occupy the temple, the jiva has to stop pretending it's his body, and he has to give the body to Vishnu. And the Vishnu can occupy the body, and the jiva realizes that the jiva has no control. The jiva doesn't control the body. The jiva is not the controller. And the jiva will stop trying to control the body and will invite Vishnu to control the body. Then Vishnu will use the jiva's imperfections to get to take care of Vishnu's business in the world, and gradually those imperfections will dissipate, and the jiva will become purified, and then the jiva will have perfect function, and the body will have perfect function because it's Vishnu controlling the body, and the jiva's gotten out of the way and gone and played with Krishna and Balaram in the beauty of the forest, and assisting the gopis and Radharani and serving Krishna in a transcendental atmosphere. Lord Sri Krishna therefore stated in the second chapter that every living being is individual. We're not all one. We are like the hairs on your head are all individual, but they're still connected to you. Okay. That the Lord is also individual. They were all individuals in the past. They are individuals at present, and they will continue to be individuals in the future, never merging, never becoming one. The jivas will still be hairs, and Krishna will still be the body, and the hairs will always be connected to the body. But the hairs are not the whole body, and the hairs are not Krishna. The hairs are individual hairs, and Krishna is the individual Supreme Personality of Godhead from whom all the hairs emanate, the souls themselves, even after liberation. At night, we see everything as one in the darkness, but in day, when the sun is up, we see everything in its real identity. Identity with individuality is spiritual life in real knowledge. So this Mayavadi or nonsensical atheistic philosophy that we're all one and that we are God, or the Buddhist philosophy that we are nothing and we try to dissipate our own existence into the void, that this is ignorance, this is Satan's influence. Okay, the devil is very real, and he's saturated the society with this propaganda. And the universities accept this propaganda, the material scientists accept this propaganda, the atheists accept this propaganda, the Buddhists accept this propaganda. The propaganda is that God is not a person, and that you are not a person, but we can become, because with this propaganda they suggest that we could become God, which is not true. We are part and parcel of God, but we are eternally given the gift of individuality and free will. And through this gift of individuality and free will, we can either show our ass at God, turn our back to Him, pardon my language. We can turn our back to Him. We can show our donkey to God. We can turn our back to Him, which is what 99.9% of the jivas out there do. Or, and try to pursue our own appetites, eating His stuff, cutting down His stuff, killing His creatures. Or we can turn our hearts to Him, and our minds to Him, and our consciousness to Him. And we can embrace Him, and accept Him, and recognize that He's on our side, and He wants us to be happy. He wants to accommodate us in our real purpose in life, which is in having a relationship with Him and serving Him. And when we come under that umbrella of genuine service-minded personality, we grow up, and our life becomes service to others, but through service to God. Then we can become happy and perfected. And every master in the world who knows whose worth is salt, or any teacher in the world whose worth is salt, will tell you that we cannot be happy serving ourselves. That we have to surrender to a higher power, and we have to, at the very minimum, serve the greater good, which is the base of the cone of Krishna. the impersonal base of the cone of Krishna is the greater good, but the very, very tip of the cone, right, of truth and service is the Supreme Personality of Godhead through Radharani's authorization. We cannot serve Krishna directly. We must serve Krishna through Radharani's authorization and through the authorization of Guru. We have to learn about this through Guru. Right. Is there any questions? Any of the folks in this room? I'm not sure if we even have an open chat window that anybody can chat questions to. We'll see if we can get that going later. Very well then. They're sitting here quietly, so I must have making myself perfectly clear. Thank you for hearing and having an appetite for something other than ignorance, having an appetite for the most confidential knowledge of the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru, all glories to Sri Gauranga, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasada Bhutale Srimate Saraswati Nanda Paramam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Vaikuntara Saraswati Hare Krishna. Thus ends our transmission for the day.